One of the responsibilities of either a board or the chief executive is to identify the direction you want people to move in by having a very effective vision and mission for your organization, and then getting everybody on the bus in the right seats and heading them in the right direction.
All right, welcome to Global Tech Leaders Mapping Success, the podcast where we spotlight voices behind innovation in the world's leading tech regions. I'm your host, Mike DeRosier, CEO of Silicon Maps. Today, I'm honored to be joined by a true pillar of the Arizona technology community, Steven Zylstra, President and CEO of the Arizona Technology Council. For over 18 years, Steve's led the Arizona Tech Council, which serves as state premier trade association for science and technology. Under his leadership, the council has become a driving force in connecting, advocating for, and empowering technology organizations across Arizona, spanning sectors like semiconductors, aerospace, software, advanced manufacturing, and much more. I've had the privilege of knowing Steve for many years through our Silicon Desert Map and a long-standing relationship with the Arizona Technology Council. I can say firsthand he's been a most consistent champion of tech innovation and growth. Today we'll dive into Arizona's tech evolution, the Tech Council's impact, Steve's leadership journey, and where the region is heading next. Steve, it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining.
Great to see you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, let's jump right in. So let's just talk a minute about your personal journey. Just how did your journey into tech and leadership begin?
Yeah, so my undergraduate degree was in engineering. I started my career in engineering at the Ford Motor Company in Dearborn in advanced vehicle development. Spent a number of years there. I was on Ford's graduate management training program, which is a 2-year program where you do 3-month stints all over the company. And when I was there, the automotive industry wasn't doing very well. So a year after I finished that 2-year program, my vice president came to me and said, you may have noticed we've laid off about 20% of Ford employees. You've done really well here, and we're going to give you a couple opportunities to transfer into Ford Aerospace. So I got interviews at Ford Aerospace and Communication Corporation and Ford's Western Development Lab, which made satellites. And I got offers for both, and I took the one that was closest to the ocean in Newport Beach, California. The other one was in Palo Alto. And so I went from working on automobiles to missiles. Ford Aerospace made tactical air-to-air missiles. Spent some time there, and then I got a job offer at Bendix Guidance Systems Division. We made attitude control systems for spacecraft. Spent a couple years there as a technical manager. And then another company that I had worked with when I was at Ford Aerospace recruited me. It's called General Pneumatics Corporation. I became chief engineer and head of program management. And then later, they sent me to Arizona for the first time, and I took over our Western Research Center. We did research in the field of cryogenics, low temperature physics, developed machines that produce refrigeration in the cryogenic range. Then I got recruited to another aerospace company called Simula, and we were crashworthiness experts. That was kind of a cool job because we crashed things and blew things up. But for the 15 years I had been in Arizona at that point, I had started precursors to the Arizona Tech Council. I had started the Arizona Innovation Network, and then I ran something called the High Tech Industry Cluster. And I did that for 15 years as a volunteer. And as a result of that, Pittsburgh found out about me and made me an offer I couldn't refuse to move to Pittsburgh to run the Pittsburgh Technology Council. So I did that, and I simultaneously ran 4 other organizations: the Nanomaterials Commercialization Center, the Doyle Center for Manufacturing Technology, Biomedical Development Corporation, and what was the last one? I ran the MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership called Catalyst Connection. So I did that for about 8 years, and then the position at the Arizona Technology Council was open, and I got recruited back to Arizona. And that was the 18 years ago you mentioned. So I've been running the Tech Council now here in Arizona for 18 years. Personally, my hobbies are I have 4 motorcycles.
Nice. There you go.
I mentioned I was at Ford Motor. I'm a motorhead, so I have a C8 Corvette. And my principal hobby is sort of ornamental horticulture. I've built a botanic garden in my yard. I have thousands and thousands of plants. So
Wow.
that's where I get all my therapy. While I'm watering, trimming, fertilizing my plants, I don't think about much else. So that's a little bit about me and my background.
That's amazing. Well, that is an incredible story right there for sure. So, and we'll get a little further into some of that here. But so, tell me a little bit about like, what's been your key takeaways here from the ATC as far as they've had a lot of years and you've had some a lot of changes for sure, which we're going to talk about that a little bit. Maybe we'll step forward and maybe describe the current state of Arizona tech ecosystem and where that's at. There's a lot going on. You guys just hosted Semicon West, which did an amazing job, by the way. I was there. We saw each other there, and that was an incredible event hosted by Arizona for sure.
Well, let me start with a little history. Arizona's tech sector really started after World War II. During World War II, a couple things happened. One, there were a lot of bases built here in Arizona, a couple Air Force bases, a couple Army bases, even a Marine base. And as a consequence of that, all the prime contractors for the Department of Defense ultimately set up operations here. Every single one of them has an operation here in Arizona. And that's one, because they want to be close to the customer. But two, you may recall that the Japanese actually got to the coasts of America. And as a consequence, the Department of Defense decided that it didn't want its contractors on the coast anymore. So that was one of the reasons that a lot of them moved inland, including to Arizona. So that brought thousands of engineers to Arizona. And then in 1949, the Galvin brothers, who were the founders of Motorola, brought Motorola here for the first time. 1949, they built an R&D facility here. And then in, I think it was 52 or 53, set up a manufacturing operation. And for the first time, well, they ended up employing about 22 to 25,000 people in Arizona ultimately. So that brought another wave of a different kind of engineer into Arizona. And then in 1979, 1980, Intel came here and set up operations. Today, Intel has about 10,000 employees in Arizona. They've had as many as 13. As you know, they've had some difficult times recently. But just in the last few years, they've built 2 new fabs here at about $32 billion in investment.
Yeah, they've been active for sure.
Yeah, and then, along the way, we built a software industry. There's about 750 software companies in Greater Phoenix. We built a really strong health and bioscience sector. 25 years ago, we were a 5th-tier city, and today we're a 2nd-tier city when it comes to health and bioscience. Not quite up there with Boston and St. Louis and San Diego yet, but getting there. We have the #1 largest concentration of optics and photonics companies in the world, mostly located in Tucson, some in Phoenix, but mostly in Tucson. And that's because U of A has the #1 optical sciences program in the world. We have 109 member companies just in that space, as an example.
Really?
Of course, I have a committee that's dedicated to that. But the semiconductor industry started attracting others, right? ASM came here, ASML came here, Rogers came here, Microsemi, Marvell, Microchip. So, we've had a rich semiconductor industry really from the beginning, right, of the tech era, if you will. Even before Silicon Valley had chip manufacturers. What's happened in in 2008, it was a wake-up call for Arizona. You may recall we were the first ones in and the last ones out of that Great Recession. And the reason is our economy was always sort of built on growth. Housing, mortgages, land, title companies, lawyers, and so on. And as you know, as the economy goes up and down, that industry goes up and down. So that was the nature of our economy for a long time. But there were a lot of us after 2008, Greater Phoenix Economic Council, the Arizona Commerce Authority, the City of Phoenix, and so on, started talking about the need to diversify our economy. And so all the economic developers started focusing on higher value-added industries, which happen to be tech industries. And so a lot of the recruiting that they've done since 2008 has been focused on tech-related sectors. And the big deal came about 5 years ago when our economic developers were able to recruit TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, TSMC, to locate operations here.
Right.
And they
building a brand new fab now, right?
Well, they're making a $165 billion investment here in Arizona. And that's the largest foreign direct investment in the history of the United States. So that investment alone is 6 fabs. One is complete, one is ready to go online, a third one is under construction. They also plan to build 2 packaging facilities and an R&D facility.
Wow.
But just last week, you probably heard the president announce that TSMC had committed to invest another $250 billion in the United States. And a lot of that is going to be invested here in Arizona.
That's awesome.
And they're talking about 6 additional fabs to the 6 they're already planning. And, as a consequence of them coming here, they make the most sophisticated chips of any company in the world. Soon they'll be making 2 nanometer feature-sized chips in the facilities in Arizona. And, that has brought NVIDIA here. That's brought Apple here. I mean, Apple had a command center here that's related to its data centers, but not on the chip side, if you will. So it's just remarkable how the technology sector has transformed since I first got involved back in 1984.
And moving fast as we speak.
And moving ever faster, right? With the advent of AI, of course, that makes all of this even more important. Depending on how you're counting, we're number 2 or 4 in the nation for data centers. So, and we're building a massive number of them right now. And so, anyway, that's a little bit of both the history and what has really recently transformed our economy in Arizona. And now we have a very diverse economy, so we are in a much better position to be resilient in the case of a downturn.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's very interesting. And so, Steve, where do you see what sectors are growing the fastest right now? Where do you see that happening in Arizona specifically?
So, I think the fastest growing sector from data I've seen is the health and bioscience sector. And, there's a lot of research that goes on here. My wife, for instance, works for the Translational Genomics Research Institute that does precision medicine in both cancer and neurological diseases. The number 1 Alzheimer's Institute in the world is here.
Wow.
Mayo has been investing significantly here in Arizona. For a long, long time, U of A was the only university that had a medical school. Now both NAU and ASU are building medical schools. And there are private medical schools that have located here as well. So that's definitely an up-and-comer. In spite of the massive investment that's been made in the semiconductor industry, as you know, for several years that industry has been down. Right. So what that industry has always been known for is investing in the downturn so that they're prepared for the upswing, right, with the latest and greatest technology. So that's what you've been seeing happening here in Arizona. And when things finally break loose in the semiconductor industry, we're going to be well positioned. I mentioned optics and photonics. Photonics, of course, is related to quantum computing, which is
yes,
in our future.
Mixing that with AI is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. It will transform the world like we've never seen before, for sure. So optics and photonics, actually, I saw some data recently, is the fastest growing sector in the United States. And as I said, we have one of the largest critical masses of those kinds of companies in the world. Rochester, New York is the other epicenter here in Arizona. Germany is another epicenter in Europe for optics and photonics. So that industry is growing. And then unfortunately, because of the wars we've been in, or we've been supporting, both in Israel and in Ukraine, and most recently Venezuela, that industry is booming, right? Because all of that hardware that was used or is being used in those wars came from U.S. inventory and has to be replaced. So that sector is booming as well right now.
Interesting. Wow. Steven, let's talk a bit about your tech foundation. So you have a tech foundation, the SkyTech Institute. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if I may, I'd first like to sort of share with you an overview of the Tech Council, and then I'll talk about our foundation, if that makes sense. So the Arizona Technology Council, as I mentioned, is a trade association, or you mentioned, is a trade association for science and technology companies. And all the major companies that you would recognize are members. So Google, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, AWS, TSMC, Intel, Honeywell, Boeing, Raytheon. But 80% of our members have less than 100 employees. So we sort of serve the startup through the multinational. And we serve all the relevant sectors here in Arizona: semiconductor and electronics, aerospace, aviation, space and defense, IT and all that means, software, solution providers, data centers, AI companies, telecom, health and bioscience, optics and photonics, e-mobility and clean energy, smart cities and IoT. And we do 4 basic things. We do public policy advocacy at the local, state, and federal level. It's something we're very, very well known for. So in a significant way, we've helped shape the business climate here in Arizona over the years to make it conducive to the creation, expansion, and attraction of technology-based companies. We also do about 100 events a year. We have all kinds of publications, magazine, newsletter, podcasts. And then for our smaller members, we negotiate lower cost products and services. We run a association health plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We run a 401k program with Empower. We have tuition discounts on all the major universities in Arizona. So full service trade association for science and tech companies. And then the SciTech Institute is Arizona Tech Council's foundation. And it focuses exclusively on STEM education, K through workforce. And for instance, 15 years ago, we launched Arizona's SciTech Festival, which is now the 3rd largest festival in the United States, essentially focusing on youth and their families, motivating them to take a STEM education and or career path. One of the coolest programs we run at the SciTech Institute is called the Chief Science Officer Program. And we started it here in Arizona, and the way it works is the school must run an election in grades 6 through 12 to elect a Chief Science Officer. That student then has to create a STEM action plan for their class. We run them through a leadership institute. We bring them together in teams across districts, we call it cabinets. And that program, and we give them all kinds of leadership opportunities, speaking opportunities, podcasts, that kind of thing. That program is so successful, we're now in 15 other states and 6 other countries around the world. And it's the goal is to make STEM accessible to everyone, anywhere. And so that's the goal of the organization. So you can see how that complements the Tech Council, developing the next generation of talent, which is critical to the growth of the industry.
Absolutely, and paying it forward. I know the Arizona Technology Council has a tremendous amount of events and education programs. A lot of value to the members. That's for sure. I know there's quite a bit, and some cross-border innovation as well too. Or text-based roles, you do that?
Yeah. So first of all, I serve on the U.S. District Export Council. Actually, the Arizona District Export Council, which is a program as part of the U.S. Commercial Service. We're actually appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and so cross-border activity has always been important. All of our members tend to be global, right? They have locations around the world, or they're exporters, right? So it's important the Tech Council be engaged in that. I also serve on the Board of Governors for something called the U.S.-Mexico Foundation for Science, which is promoting cross-border collaboration between the U.S. and Mexico, particularly Arizona and Mexico. And in addition to that, our national organization called the Tech Councils of North America, we have 64 tech councils across the U.S. and Canada, and we collaborate with all of our peers in Canada as well. So USMCA is really important to trade for the United States, right? It's really a mega economic development region between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. So that's really important to us. And global opportunities. We've done trade missions. The Tech Council has done trade missions in the past to China and Mexico and Israel, places like that, bringing our members across the world to showcase opportunities there.
Amazing. You're a busy guy. You get your hands in a lot, do a lot, no doubt about it. So, Steve, tell me a little bit about what do you see in the future? Where's the Arizona tech community going to go in the next 5-10 years? Key opportunities ahead?
So, you mentioned AI. That's transforming everything, right?
Yeah.
I think the two next big things for the U.S. and for Arizona are, we mentioned it, quantum computing and fusion. The new head of research for the University of Arizona, who happens to be on my board, Tomas Diaz de la Rubia, is formerly, I think he spent 24 years at Lawrence Livermore. So he's really devoting that institution's resources to fusion, and he just had a huge gathering of everybody who's interested in the United States in fusion at U of A. So I think, and that solves our energy problems that we're facing, right? To power data centers and other aspects of AI. It's a ways off, probably a decade at least, maybe more, depending on who you believe. And then quantum, I hear the pundits talk about it, that we're looking at maybe 3 to 5 years away for quantum. There are versions of quantum available. IBM and Google have quantum computers. The Chinese, of course, are aggressively working on quantum. So, I think those are two technology areas that are the future for the United States and the future here in Arizona for sure.
Yeah.
And, we're just at our infancy when it comes to AI as well. I can't tell you how much programming we do on AI, and we have an AI committee. I think we have 150 companies that serve on the AI committee. So it's broken down into subcommittees, right, in order to have effective meetings. So, we're really just at it's like an iceberg, and just a little bit of it is currently showing in AI. So those are the next three big things.
So that brings me into my next question, what little prediction. What's the biggest risks or challenges you're seeing facing in the ecosystem with all of that?
That's an important question. I see 4 risks. One we referred to, and that's energy. I had the occasion last year to be in the company of the CEOs of Arizona Public Service, Salt River Project, and First Solar. And they basically told the crowd that in the next 5 years, they've got to produce 40% more power here in Arizona than they're producing today. That's by 2030. Taking us well over 100 years to get where we're at, right? And 5 years. And in 10 years, 100% more power. So being able to, be able to produce that kind of energy level is a threat. Now, we're not unique. This is happening everywhere in the United States, right? We had all these years where energy consumption was flat, essentially, and now it's going like this. And no one was prepared for that.
Yeah.
And the shortest term fix, of course, is clean energy, wind and solar. Right now it's 3 to 5 years to get a new gas turbine, and we're probably talking at least a decade before small modular nuclear reactors are going to be online, and probably more time for conventional nuclear. So energy is the first risk. We're here in Arizona, so water is another risk, right? We're trying to negotiate this compact between the western states around the Colorado River right now, and that hasn't been going very well. So we'll see how that turns out. The good news is that most semiconductor fabs, advanced manufacturing facilities in general, now recirculate all their water, right? They're not consuming water, if you will. And a lot of them are moving to using recycled water, right? Even from wastewater. So that's happening. And then a lot of the data centers are moving toward different kinds of cooling techniques that don't require significant water consumption. So I think some of that's going to be remedied. And then, Arizona's actually been the best steward of water of any other state in the United States since the 1980s. So we actually use less water think about our growth. We use less water today than we used in the 1950s.
Wow.
Here in Arizona. So, but that's still a threat. And then housing, right? Housing, we're bringing all these people here. No one's been building enough housing, not only here in Arizona, but across the country for quite a while.
Growth has been huge.
And so that's an issue, particularly affordable housing here in Arizona. And then finally, workforce, right? When you have this kind of growth, you've got to be prepared to develop the workforce that's necessary. I think Arizona is doing a really good job in that particular area. The Arizona Commerce Authority has built a system of facilities around the state in various sectors to meet the demand of the workforce. Community colleges, we have one of the best community college systems in the United States. And not all these tech jobs require a 4-year education, right? A lot of them are technician positions, and either a 2-year degree or even a certification is sufficient in some cases. So I think we're doing pretty well on the workforce front, and it's one of the reasons a lot of companies move here. Again, we've had that semiconductor workforce going back to the 40s, late 40s. So anyway, I think those are 4 that concern me,
awesome.
that are related to our industry.
Absolutely, for sure. So a little, Steve, you've had an amazing career. You've been involved in so many different aspects of it. I'm sure you have an absolute wealth of knowledge, more to share, which I'd love to talk again about it. But tell me, out of your top leadership lessons that you've learned, and any advice you might give to any emerging leaders coming in and entrepreneurs.
Well, always support your team. One of I think the most important jobs of any leader is making sure that the team that they have has all the resources necessary to do their job in an effective way. Those could be dollars, those could be any kind of physical resource that's necessary, and listen, right? Listen to your team. They're on the ground doing the work, and they're most able to make good recommendations on, how we could do things different or better, more effectively. And I think always be a continuous learner, right? As we've talked about throughout today, the world is changing at such an accelerated rate that the education we got 10, 20, 30, maybe 50 years ago isn't sufficient to operate in the world we're operating in today. So you want to be a continuous learner. I think getting good at finding the right people and putting them in the right seats in your organization is critical. One of the responsibilities of either a board or the chief executive is to, identify the direction you want people to move in by having a very effective vision and mission for your organization, and then, getting everybody on the bus in the right seats and heading them in the right direction.
Right.
Those are pretty fundamental leadership things, but they're important and critical to being successful.
Absolutely. Great advice. So I know you mentioned right at the beginning a little bit of what you do kind of outside of work. You talk about motorcycles. I also ride motorcycles. I've been riding all of my life, street bikes, dirt bikes, all kinds of things. It's a lot of fun. But talk about that a sec. What kind of riding do you like to do? Street riding?
Yeah,
bike?
street riding. So I have two Harleys. One is sort of a sporty Harley, and the other one is for long distances, for going on long trips. So I have a 2002 Softail Deuce, and I have a 2014 Ultra Classic. And then I have two vintage bikes. My first bike was a 1972 Honda CL350 Scrambler, and I found one that was identical.
Yeah.
And fixed that up, and then I have the bike I always wanted but couldn't afford as a kid was the 72 Honda CB750, the first super bike. And I have one, I fixed it up a little bit, now I've decided to have it completely restored.
Nice.
So, and I ride all of them. We have great riding weather here in Arizona. And what's great is my wife loves to ride with me. We go on a lot of trips, long trips, either around Arizona or to other states like Colorado. So that's fun. And then, like I said, my therapy is in my yard.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, my wife rides with me as well too. I have a Harley Street Glide and also BMW GS as well to ride. But we've done some cross-country rides. It's a lot of fun. And I also enjoy outdoor gardening as well too as a passion.
Cool.
Terrific. Okay, well, just let's see, just for fun, we do the Silicon Desert map. I have to ask, just if you found some uses for that map, and I know it was a big hit at Semicon West for sure, but
Yeah, well, as you know, we've been involved with it since I came back to Arizona.
long time.
And have supported it throughout the years. Still encourage many of my members, as you know, that aren't on it to consider it. You made the point that Semicon was a really good place to be able to use it, right? We do a lot of events, so that's always an option for folks to use. Having it hanging in your office is always a good thing. So I think it's a good tool to showcase the importance of your organization in the tech ecosystem here in Arizona, or in the Silicon Desert.
Exactly. Very simple product, but picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And that's pretty much what it is. Okay, let's see some final thoughts on Arizona's global role, maybe on the direction.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So for most of Arizona's existence, we've been a flyover state. And, people from around the world tended to go to the coasts, California, New York, Washington, and so on. And over the last 5 years, because of the foreign direct investment that's being made here in Arizona, the rest of the world is noticing. There's hardly a week that goes by that I'm not invited to meet with a cohort of people coming from some other country around the world. Japan and Korea, and Vietnam and Taiwan and so on. So the world has finally noticed Arizona, and it's because of technology. It's because of the tech sector. When someone makes the largest foreign direct investment in this state in the history of the country, that's a big deal. Even this week, I'm meeting with the ambassador of Guatemala, right? So people from around the world are really taking note of Arizona, and I think that is a really good thing, because we make stuff here in Arizona, which gets exported around the world, and the more attention we get globally, the more opportunity that's going to create for my members and for the state of Arizona.
Absolutely, and you have the space to expand, and you have the nucleus all set up, and the infrastructure is there, and it's you've got a lot. I'm sure SemiCon West was an amazing. That's the global stage right there, right, for semiconductor, and you did an amazing job hosting that event.
You asked a question earlier that I didn't completely answer. There's another sector that's really taking off in Arizona, and that's space. So U of A and ASU are two of the most heavily funded universities in the United States when it comes to space. Planetary exploration, all aspects of space. 2 years ago, we created the Arizona Space Commission. I'm honored to be on the Space Commission. We're working with the mayor and the economic development folks in Yuma with the idea of building a spaceport in Yuma. You got the Barry Goldwater Range to the north, and you the Sea of Cortez to the south, so it's got a good proximity for creating a spaceport. And we're sort of in the space belt, right? You've got California, New Mexico, Texas, and Florida, right? That's sort of the space belt, and we're right there. And we have this long legacy. As you know, a lot of the Apollo astronauts trained here for their moon landings and for driving on the moon. And so we have this long legacy in space, and with the Space Commission, we're really going to focus on amping that up and allow Arizona to be in the same breath as Florida and California and Texas when it comes to space.
Fantastic. And Steven, so that's terrific. Where can listeners connect with you and with the Arizona Technology Council, get more information, become a member?
So aztechcouncil.org is our website, aztechcouncil.org. My email, I'm happy to take emails, is szylstra, Zylstra, at aztechcouncil.org. So if anyone's interested in connecting with me, please reach out or go to our website. It's a very, very robust website. You can learn everything you need to know about the Arizona Technology Council and Arizona's technology sector there. And we do a quarterly report on Arizona's tech ecosystem, by the way. It's called the Arizona Technology Industry Impact Report. You can find that on our website as well.
And they can download that for free?
They can.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you've got a lot of resources on your website for sure. Steven, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure bringing all your years of experience, and that's amazing. I didn't know half of that, so that was real exciting to hear that. You've been involved in a lot of different industries, sectors, and regions as well. So you've got a tremendous amount of information.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Steven. And to all our guests, you can find this podcast on YouTube, you find it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, you find it on our website at siliconmaps.com. And thank you very much.